can I add a point, please, Jonathan? Because one of the interesting things that's happened in the last few years is that the Jupyter notebooks have become more popular in the computing area. Jupyter notebooks are derived effectively from Mathematica notebooks, which lets you combine Markdown, LaTeX, Python, and other programming languages all in one document, which can then be rendered as HTML, PDF, or other formats. And so I think a lot of people have seen the need for markup entry of some sort. They use Markdown, but actually the code that gets stored ends up being LaTeX. And production to a variety of output formats. And they've, I think, seen that if you've got anything that looks even slightly technical, such as program code, then you do need the technology that goes with that. It uses, behind the scenes, it uses the listings package of LaTeX to format the program code. So there are signs of people having a need to know. So the end user, which might be either the student or tutor, will need to know enough about both Markdown and LaTeX and cascading style sheets and HTML to use that technology. So I think there is a need to know growing in that bit. Okay, Jonathan, back to you.
Well, maybe I could interject something here. Since Jupyter was mentioned, I just happened to be updating a bibliography today, and it's an entire journal issue about Jupyter notebooks. And I've just posted a link on the chat to it. Some people may wish to follow that. I can mention that in my mathematics department, we have one instructor who last year got funding to buy a special machine to act as a Jupyter server and is using it in courses. So we're seeing a start on this. And I'm perfectly fine with people doing this. I would just like to caution that when you deal with documents, it's important to think, especially for technical documents, that they have a lifetime, sometimes a considerable lifetime. And you want to be able to do things like find out what are the differences between the version today and the version 2 weeks ago. Problem with the word processor mentality is it's essentially impossible to do something like that because they're stored in complicated binary formats. And the beauty of both HTML and LaTeX and plain text is that it's normal text characters you can store in a text file, and you can run diff utilities to compare different versions. On the earlier link I posted to the pubtech doc tree at our site, if in any of the HTML pages you type Control-U, you can get a view of what that HTML looks like. And if you've ever looked at HTML produced by machines and computer programs, it's generally dreadful and unreadable. But you'll find that what I produce by hand is really neatly formatted, and the structure is totally obvious, and it's easy to read. And I argue that for documents, especially at the author level, you see the document much more in the input form than you do in the output form. And therefore, it's important that the input form be readable. One of the criticisms I heard of Markdown a year or two ago was that it lacked a comment syntax. I don't know whether that's changed, but to me, that would be a total showstopper because comments are an essential part of any programming and markup language. Perhaps someone who's used it more frequently and more recently could comment.
Markdown doesn't support comments. It's not designed for that sort of thing. To a certain extent, comments should be part of the document, but they're hidden from certain processes. But Markdown doesn't have that sophistication of markup. Kelly?
You can put comments in a Markdown document.
You can.
You just have to use HTML.
Sorry, say that again, Kelly.
You can put comments in a Markdown document. You just have to use HTML comments.
Oh, I've forgotten that. Yes, you can put any HTML into a Markdown, pretty much. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Perhaps because I'm a rule follower and it's Markdown. So anyway, that's really helpful to know that, and thank you for telling us that, Mark, Kelly.
Yeah, and here's a reason why you might want to do that. In a large math book I wrote, I made a point of every time there's a math display of having in the input file a comment block that has the creation of that formula in a symbolic algebra system like Maple or Mathematica. And if I have numbers, there's often a program in the comments that produces the numbers. And that's very useful to have as a record of where things came from, even if it's just for you, the author.
Let me defend myself by using one of your favorite tools, which is that the comment should be in a syntax that is machine readable and comprehensible, so that one ought to be able to extract comments and do useful things with them. In Python, you've got doc strings, which are comments of sort, but they're also part of the function, and they can be extracted to produce documentation. And a lot of other languages have that sort of thing. So it seems as though there's two sorts of comments that are part of the program and comments that are not part of the program. It's a bit like marginal notes. Are they part of the document or aren't they?